You oversee 450,000 students.
I'm in a position, in a seat that I think has the greatest impact for our students. The county superintendent is a voice to advocate for our students.
Has politics become too big in the school system?
Absolutely, in many different ways. In 6th grade, I met a teacher, Mr. Donald Geiser. He saw something within me that I didn't see. He saw a strength in me, and I think that as educators, we need to do that. We need to see the assets in students and not their deficits, not the fact that they're troublemakers or students with disability or they can't read, but we have to see what their strengths are and help them grow that.
Dr. Bean, it's great to have you back on. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You oversee 450,000 students in your district. Can you tell us what your role is right now?
As the county superintendent, there's 58 counties in California. So as Orange County, we oversee 28 school districts as well as charter schools. So all of the what we call local education agency, which makes up about 450,000 students across the county.
What is it like to be in this role?
It's amazing. It's incredible. I've told people this is my absolute sweet spot in my professional career. I love this job. And the reason why I love this job is because I'm in a position, in a seat that I think has the greatest impact for our students. And many of our students that we serve directly reflect much of like my upbringing and my experiences in education as a disabled English learner.
And how did you get here? Can you tell us the story?
The origin story starts in Vietnam. I was born in 1971 during the Vietnam War. And at the age of 2, I contracted polio, which left me paralyzed from the waist down. And so my natural parents actually abandoned me on the streets of Saigon. And then I was brought in by an orphanage for 2 years. And then in 1975, President Ford executed Operation Baby Lift. And that was a mission to bring Vietnamese refugees from Vietnam to be brought over to the United States to be placed in foster homes and families that would adopt, because these are, babies that orphans from the war. I remember April 6, 1975, there were multiple planes going out, but it was such a chaotic day that the orphanage staff put all of my braces, all my possessions on one plane out. I got mixed up and put in another plane. Well, the first plane that had my possessions took off, and it actually had mechanical failure and crashed.
Wow.
So over 93 orphans died.
How old were you?
I was 4 years old at the time.
Do you remember?
I remember that day. Yeah, there was a lot of chaos. Lots of staff, orphanage staff, just running around, scrambling to get these babies on these buses, these black buses, I recall, and then traveling across some sort of dirt field to the airplanes. So it's a pretty chaotic day. First, all the flights met in Hawaii. So my flight then from Hawaii to Seattle, that's where my future adopted parents would pick me up and then bring me down to San Diego, where that's where they lived, in San Diego. My mom had a compassion, a heart for the most vulnerable in society. So she brought in over 150 foster kids in that household. And many of the foster kids,
150 foster.
over 150 in the lifetime that I was there. Many of those children had disabilities, like myself. Many were abused. And then they ended up adopting 10 of those children, and me included.
Wow.
And they had 2 of their own. So I grew up in a pretty chaotic family of 12 brothers and sisters.
And how did you get into education? What was the path for you?
Yeah, well, my dad was a 6th grade teacher his whole career. And he instilled in me that, if you're going to overcome, Stefan, the fact that you're in a wheelchair, you have difficulty learning the language, and you're in a new culture, then you really have to uplift education. He was a teacher, so he instilled that in all of us. I guess that just anchors my values, is education, and then having compassion for the most vulnerable. And going through the education system exactly matches those values.
Was it difficult for you to attend school in a new country, a big family, and new language, and you're disabled as well?
Yeah, that's a very insightful question, because as you could imagine, coming into a new country, a new culture, I didn't do very well in school early on. From kindergarten to 5th grade, I had about 4 major surgeries. that would leave me out of the classroom for quite a bit. In fact, in 5th grade, they had to straighten my spinal cord because I had scoliosis. And so I had to wear a body cast for 9 months, full body cast, just lying there. So that was most of my 5th grade year. So as you can imagine, being pulled out because I was a student with a disability, pulled out to learn English, pulled out to work on my speech, and then pulled out for all these surgeries. I didn't do very well in elementary school.
How did you change that?
Well, I didn't change it. It was actually educators around me that changed it. So in 6th grade, I met a teacher, Mr. Donald Geisinger. He noticed that I got in trouble a lot because I like to talk a lot because I was just learning the English language, right? And one assignment that he gave the whole class was to present a commercial on any product. So I presented mine on deodorant, right? I made up the name, and I had the class laughing, and he was laughing. And so he came up to me after that, and he said, look, I know you have a challenge of being in a wheelchair, and you're just learning the language, but I don't care about that. He said, what I noticed is that you have a gift of gab. He said, you have the gift of communication. And so he said, Stefan, just give oral presentations for the rest of this school year. You don't have to read and do the comprehension test, just give oral presentations. So that built, as you can imagine, my communication skills and my confidence. And from that moment on, I started to believe in myself and just started getting straight A's from 6th grade all the way through high school.
What did that interaction meant for you?
He saw something within me that I didn't see. He saw a strength in me. And I think that as educators, we need to do that. We need to see the assets in students and not their deficits, not the fact that they're troublemakers or students with disability or they can't read, but we have to see what their strengths are and help them grow that. Because when that happens, then you're going to get a student that will excel and believe in themselves. So let me tell you the results of that. In 8th grade, another person noticed that I had this gift of speaking. So they asked me to attend and speak on behalf of the disabled in front of 15,000 people in Washington, D.C. at the age of 14. And so I remember giving that speech in Washington, D.C., and at the end, just got this huge standing ovation. And as a 14-year-old going through the crowd, right, that just boosted my confidence. And so from there on, I believed in myself. I knew I had a purpose, and that was because of Mr. Geisinger. Here's an interesting fact. Mr. Geisinger actually, he swore me in just last year as I was appointed Orange County Superintendent of Schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that helped your confidence a lot. And were you able to do better in the written parts as well?
Yeah. And then in high school, I took education very seriously, academics very seriously, because I learned that I could succeed in academics. And so I had a great English teacher, and she taught me the basic structures of writing. And I have a pretty analytical mind, so I started to learn, writing is very formulaic. There's structures, different structures for different types of writing. So once I learned those structures, writing became much easier for me.
Now, going back to how you went to do that speech, can you tell us what motivated you to be able to go there to do that speech to get the standing ovation?
It was basically to do what my mother did and father did, and that was be an advocate for the most vulnerable. And so I had the opportunity to speak for the disabled. And it was about, the speech that I wrote was about telling the youths around me, the students around me, that just because an individual is disabled, they're not broken. So don't be afraid to approach them. They're not going to fall. They're not going to break. They just want to be treated just like any other student. And that they have emotions and feelings, and they laugh and sense of humor. And that was pretty much the content of my speech. And I think that resonated with, out of the 15,000 people out there, about 10,000 were students, because it was a youth gathering. And so I think that resonated with many of the youth at that time.
How did you get the confidence to do that? Because at the age of 14, it's not easy to go in front of that many people.
Around 3rd grade, I tried to fit in with the students around me. So I tried to go play foursquare, tried to do the things on the yard, and students didn't quite figure it out. In fact, I did have a bully that would say, you shouldn't be playing, you can't play foursquare, get out of here. But then things shifted for me in terms of being involved when the school asked Paralympic athlete to come and really share with the kids that anybody could be, an athlete. And so there he was on the track, and he raced every single kid that wanted to race against him, and he beat the heck out of them. And that just inspired me to I knew that now I could definitely get involved in anything that I wanted to be involved in. So he and I became friends. He was a mentor of mine. He took me on field trips, and I remember watching him drive, right, with the hand controls in the vehicle. And I said, okay, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to learn to drive one day, because that is a necessity, right, for people to get around. And so he inspired me in both ways to truly, to one, know that I could be involved in the activities that other kids were involved in, and also I could learn those skills that would help me to be independent.
And then where did you go next from there?
I graduated high school with straight A's, which led me to get scholarships to go to USC, full ride scholarships to USC. Got my undergraduate degree there in entrepreneurship, actually, because I loved business. And that's where I would meet Janet. And at USC, we had a work-study program together. I asked her out 3 times at USC, and she said no all 3 times. So then we graduated. That wasn't the end of Janet. I met Janet at a mutual friend's wedding 3 years later, and the sparks flew that night, and she actually made the first move. I always teased her. She made the first move that night. Then we started dating, and for the very first official date outside of that wedding, we met at the Kern River, had a picnic there, and we had a picnic on the ground. So I got in my wheelchair, sat on the blanket, enjoying our lunch together, and next thing I see is my wheelchair rolling down the bank, and it goes into the Kern River. And if people know anything about the Kern River, it's a very dangerous river. The rapids are pretty strong, and so I was literally and figuratively paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. Wheelchair's sinking in the water. Next thing I see, Janet standing up, and mind you, this is our very first official date.
Wow.
Stands up, and she runs down the bank, and she jumps in the water. And the water's about this high on her. She reaches down, and she pulls that wheelchair and drags it up to me. So as you can imagine, CMA, what do you think I'm thinking at that moment? I'm thinking, I'm going to propose to this woman, right, next year. And so I did. I ended up proposing to her, and she said yes.
Your experiences in school kind of shaped your future, right?
Yes.
Tell us more. What was the moment you decided to get into education?
Well, when I graduated USC, I did try to start a business. It was successful for a few years. And then there was unethical things happening in the company because I had people around me. And I realized I'm not giving back the way my mom and dad did. And so at that moment, I decided to pursue a career in education because of Janet. So remember we met at the wedding, we had our first date, we started dating for about a year. And in that year, we became very intimate and strong together and connected. And her parents were immigrants from Portugal, farmers. They worked really hard. And her dad said, just like my dad, education, Janet, education. So Janet also, she got her undergrad. She was the first to get her master's in her family. In that year that we were engaged, I moved up to Fresno area because that's where she was from. And I said, okay, what am I going to do? So I decided to pursue education in that year. So I got my credential in that year, got my master's at the same time, and then we moved back down to Long Beach after we got married, and that was my first teaching assignment at Long Beach Unified.
What did you teach?
I taught 3rd grade and I taught 5th grade. I envisioned myself making a bigger impact by leading people because I was so used to leading people in the entrepreneurship program. I was ASB president in high school, and so I wanted to lead. So I knew I wouldn't be a teacher my whole career, And so then I pursued other avenues that would help me get into administration.
Now you are in a position that you can help a lot of kids, right?
Yeah. As the Orange County Superintendent, I have the privilege of working with over 2,200 employees, both full-time and part-time, that service directly the most vulnerable in our community. So we actually directly educate foster youth, homeless youth, students with disabilities, with severe disabilities, incarcerated youth. We have 31 sites across Orange County that directly serves those students. And that's just one piece of our work. The other pieces of our work, and I've been fascinated by this, is learning. We have hundreds of agencies across Orange County that we connect to school districts to support those students that may need help with, a backpack, shelter, a home, those kinds of things. And so we work closely with different, not only county agencies like social services, but also nonprofit organizations like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Junior Achievement. We connect all of those organizations to our students.
How did you manage to get there from being a fifth grade teacher to where you are today?
My wife, Janet, we both have very similar pathways, that she saw that if I was going to make a big difference, that I needed to help transfer my knowledge to other adults, other educators. And so in order to do that, she nudged me to become a principal. And so because of her, I did. And then she, in 2014, at the peak of my career, in terms of what I thought at the time, right, I was moving up in education, she started experiencing these very extreme migraines. We went to doctors, and the doctor said it was migraines and to go to the migraine clinic. So she tried to manage them for about 6 months. And then finally, she went to an ophthalmologist to get her new prescriptions, eye prescriptions. And the ophthalmologist looked in her eyes, and she immediately pulled a pad of paper and wrote MRI stat. So and she gave it to Janet and said, go to the emergency room. So I met her at the ER, and they did an MRI scan on her brain. And they said, okay, we're going to give the results to your doctors. They'll call you. So we got in the car, went home, and I remember this. I put the car in park, and that's the moment she got a call. So she got the call for her to come back. So her doctor was waiting for us there, her primary doctor, and they showed us the scan that she had over 12 tumors in her brain. The doctors could physically see about 12 tumors, but in the report it said multiple tumors. And usually in the medical terms, multiple means too many to count. And so that just devastated us that night, obviously. And after they did a biopsy of a swollen lymph node, they found out that she had breast cancer that had already metastasized to the brain. It didn't even develop in her breast, it just went straight to the brain. And the doctors said that her oncologist said in this case, it's typically about 6 months survival rate. Because once it's in the brain, there's very little that they could do. So we are people of faith, and we prayed, and Janet came back to me and said that God promised her multiple years, extended years in her life. So that 6 months turned into 6 years. So she's able to go from survive 2014. She passed in 2020. But those 6 years were very pivotal for my kids. We have 4 children. The youngest at the time she was diagnosed was 4, and the oldest was only 12. So they got another 6 beautiful years with Janet. And so toward the end in hospice, we had lots of conversations. One of the conversations Janet said was, Stefan, just promise me you'll take care of the kids. And so I knew, of course, she meant, of course, our 4 kids. So I said, of course, Janet, I'm going to take care of our 4 kids. So, as a single father, I think that I've tried to do the best I could to take care of my 4 kids. But as going through education and from 2020 till now, I realized that she actually meant, I think she meant, take care of all the kids that you can impact, all the students. And so now I'm doing that. Now I'm taking care of 450,000 kids in addition to my 4 at home.
And how is this role different from being a principal? Can you compare when you were starting?
Yeah. You know, being a principal, I enjoyed really a lot because you're leading a team of people that you impact directly, and you're leading a community of parents and students and teachers all working together. It was a beautiful time. I love being a principal. This role is much different because now it's more of a county and statewide impact. There's so many systems in education, so many parts of education that I just didn't know what I didn't know that I know now. Okay, I know that, my goodness, there's so many agencies and organizations across the state and the federal government that supports education at a local level. And so now this job is about really inspiring the employees at the County Office of Education. And I say this all the time. Our job is to serve. My job is to serve them because they serve the people that take care of our kids, right? And so we serve the people that serve our students, and that has been the biggest difference, is that although I'm far removed from students, which is different than a principal, you're directly connected with students, although I'm far removed from them, I'm protecting and caring for them through the work that we do at the County Office of Education and all of the supports that we provide to districts. So it's a big difference.
In your journey, you've achieved a lot. You've gone through a lot and you've achieved a lot.
Yeah.
What are some of the values that you think brought you here?
It's first about faith, right? So our family, I grew up in a family of faith, and that we would go to church, and that we would anchor our values around God, and that we'd anchor our values around each other, right? Have faith in each other. I also learned from my parents the value of family, and not just immediate family, like I did with the Beans or even my kids, but just family in general. Anywhere that you go, you have to build family, right? So faith, family, and then that for me, that value of putting students first by caring for them. So that value of care and empathy. I try as a leader to impart on our team that we must care for one another. And we have to have really strong EQ in order to do that, right? Emotional intelligence in order to do that. So once we care for each other, then it becomes easier for that team to care for, our students. And so that value of care is very important. So those are just a few of the many values that I've learned, but I think all those values were instilled into me by others, whether it was my parents, whether it was Janet, whether it was my mentors, teachers. All these people made me who I am, right? And that success is owed to that. As I reflect back on the journey in the County Office of Education as the superintendent, I've been really proud of what we as a team have been able to accomplish in that year. So we created together, based on the input of our educational partners, like our nonprofits, our district administrators, our schools, teammates within, we were able to take that input and to create what we call a 5-3-1 strategic plan. And what that is it's 5 values or 5 initiatives that drive our work internally. It's 3 objectives in the way that we support those people that support our students. And then there's 1 big audacious goal for us internally. So the 5-3-1 is anchored in the 5 values that we have, or initiatives that we have. The initiatives such as building strong leaders through emotional intelligent leadership, building strong sense of artificial intelligence, using it responsibly and ethically, looking at career technical education through a different lens, not just offering it to only some students, but offering it to all students. Because the data shows us that English, only a little over 30% of English learners have access to career technical education in high school. A little over 40% of our students with disabilities have access to career technical education in high school. That's unacceptable. So we want to offer these career pathways for all of our students. Because some of our students who are most vulnerable may not go to college. So they need to have the opportunity for career. That's the third one. We want to be able to uplift innovation in our county. And we're doing that by finding resources and money to be able to help those local education agencies lift innovation. So we're doing that through starting our own foundation. We're doing that through offering a grant to our districts for innovation. Most thing I'm excited about in the 3 support objectives is offering tailored support and services for individual LEAs. Now we have large LEAs like...
What is LEAs?
So local education agency, just another term for district. So we have large district like Newport, Irvine. So we have these large districts. And then we have really small districts like Lowell Joint, Buena Park, La Habra. And they all have different needs in between. And so our objective is to provide tailored support for those districts and local education agencies at their needs, as well as charter schools, because charter schools are also LEAs, local education agencies. And then the one thing that I'm most proud of our work strategic plan is this one big audacious goal is to deliver a world-class educational program for our alternative education students. We call that program Access. And so what we've done in the last 9 months is create a vision and goals to get access to become this world-class education by 2030. So a lot of things that we've done and accomplished just in a span of over 12 months.
We have covered education on California Insider and the challenges that are in California.
Yeah.
If there was one thing that you would change, what would be?
If we can all, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're Democrat, Republican, progressive, conservative, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, if we can all just put students first and care for them and give to them what they deserve, that's a high-class, world-class education, then we can leave the politics out of it. And when we do that, innovation is allowed to grow in school districts. It's really about local control. If we allow districts and schools to have the local control to meet the unique needs of their students, then our students will benefit from it. But when you have all this noise around you, all these political issues, all of these arguments about which approach is the best, then it just confuses our actual mission of putting students first. So I think that is there are so many sides to this issue of education that's clouding the true heart of education, and that is our kids, unfortunately.
Now, can you do that in your role?
I can do that, especially in my role as county superintendent, because I'm one voice of 58 voices. There's 58 counties in California. Those 58 counties, including Orange County, has a big impact in the way that we sit at the table with legislators, with educators in higher ed, and has an influence, has a voice in that. In this role, I have a voice in that conversation, which is different than being a principal, right? Or even a district superintendent. District superintendent supports its district like I did in LA. But a county superintendent is a voice to advocate for our students.
Has politics become too big in the school system?
Absolutely, in many different ways. And I'm not afraid to say that. Politics is coming in the way of how we choose or not choose great educational leaders. Because of politics, we may be missing out on an individual that has brilliant ideas on how to educate students just because of their political affiliation. Because of politics, we may be missing out on a wonderful program for not only a program, but instructional approach for a particular student or subset of students because of politics. Let me give you an example. I'm a believer in school choice. People know that about me because as a county superintendent, my responsibility is to take care of all local education agencies, which is traditional public schools, charter schools, and anywhere in between. If they have an LEA code, CDS code, that's the code that every LEA is given from state of California. My job is to support all of that. And so people know that I support all LEAs. That means that if a charter school has an innovative approach, then let them approach education in that way if it's successful for kids, But politics prevents that from happening. So there's lots of detriments to politics in education.
Dr. Stefan Bean, Orange County Superintendent, it was great to have you on California Insider.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this time and for being able to tell my story, as well as for being just being an advocate for our students. So thank you for allowing me to do that.